Zoom meeting. I have that my internet connection is unstable.
Oh no.
That's unusual. Well, because I'm hardwired. All right.
We can still
Sorry,
hear you.
I'm looking at my. Okay. All right. Good. Good. I want to make a special welcome to Walter. He's coming in from Augusta, Georgia.
Hey there. How are
Hello,
y'all?
Walter.
Hi.
Walter is with. Sorry, go ahead. Walter is with the
I didn't
clubhouse,
say anything.
which I'll let him. Oh, well, I was going to say I'm actually going to ask you to explain in just a little bit. All right, so today our format's going to be a little bit different than it has been the past 6 weeks or 6 weeks. As you know, it's been a lot of just listening and then a few questions or facilitate or moderating questions at the end. Today, I'm going to have questions for you. And as y'all all know, in Zoom meetings, sometimes there's people talking on top of each other and background noise. That I see that y'all are all doing a very good job keeping yourself muted. And those who are not muted, that's okay, because I don't hear any background noise coming from you. But if you want to say something, just unmute yourself and I can see that you're unmuted and I can say, Earl, what is that you have to say? And I think we can move very quickly to get to people talking to each other. A lot of you have your video off, which I think is just fine, but it's always nice to be able to see people, especially when we're having an actual discussion like we are today. So I am going to ask Justine, are we still waiting for people? Justine? Oh, she said one.
One more. No one's in the waiting room right now.
Okay. All right, we had 20-something people signed up, so they'll just probably come in. Since there's only about 15 of us here, why don't we go around and introduce ourselves to each other, since we may or may not know each other. And I'll just call out as I see you on my screen. But I don't think we've had an opportunity to officially introduce Justine Allen, who's new to 10 at the Top. She is our projects and events coordinator, and she has just been fabulous. So Justine, if you would take a second.
Thank you so much. I always like to hear that I'm fabulous. It's been a month now. I've been at 10 at the Top for a month, and I went in my first day. We like to joke and got my laptop and signed some papers, and I went home. So working from home, but really enjoying working with everyone, and also hoping that the day will come that I get to meet you in person.
Very good. Thank you, Justine. Brittney? Wait. Unmute, please. Unmute.
There we go. Sorry.
There we go. Thank you.
There we go. My name is Brittney Brackett. I'm with B Dynamic Productions. We are a media and fun literacy company that has written a few children's books. As you can see from my background, we have 4 children's books and audio books as well. And I'm a voice talent here in the Greenville, Georgia, and Florida area. Also am executive director of the Outstanding Youth Awards.
All right, very good. Thank you. Raj?
Hi, my name is Raj Gavrola. I am a mentor, human performance / life coaching, training, consulting.
Good. Raj, I think you're breaking up. All right, thank you. Well, Raj, thank you. All right, then over here to Brendan.
Hey, Brendan Buttimer, South Carolina Community Loan Fund, covers the Upstate and Catawba regions for my organization. We're a community development financial institution. I think I know most everybody on here. And I'll be dropping off actually in just a minute because we're getting ready to roll out our COVID-19 working capital lending program statewide.
Well, Brendan, if you're going to have to drop off, can you give us a quick overview of what we need to know about that, please?
Sure. The working capital program is, we are not an SBA lender, so it's we weren't able to do PPP or EIDL. The program we have is a true loan. It's not a forgivable loan. Provides working capital for businesses and nonprofits from $10,000 to $75,000 with up to 3-year payback. You can take 6 months deferment from the very beginning. It's got a streamlined application and underwriting process. So we're trying to make it quick and easy for people and make the payback fairly friendly. The rate is 1 point over prime, so it's 4.25 for up to 3 years. And that's the long and short of it. If anybody, if you don't know me, you can get in touch with me through Erin, or most everybody else on here knows me. So.
Good, Brendan, thank you. Earl?
Hi, I'm Earl. I'm with the Small Business Development Center. I'm actually the area manager for the Greenville office. So we're here when we're not in COVID mode. We're here to help small businesses with anything and everything that might challenge them, everything from business planning to business analysis, web design, financial analysis, financial planning, all of those types of things.
Very good, Earl. Thank you. For those of you just joining us, we're just introducing ourselves. So Walter?
Hi, can you hear me okay?
Yes.
Oh, y'all can hear me okay, great. I'm Walter Santiago. I'm the marketing and comms director for the Clubhouse here in Augusta, Georgia. As of last year, we were placed in the Georgia Cyber Center, and we launched this summer, we launched our Summer Code Bootcamp. So we are developing full stack web developers, people of all ages. And then we also manage a co-working space that is available to both our members and the public. And all events and things just follow our initiatives for community engagement and innovation. Thank you.
Very good. Thank you, Walter. They also serve entrepreneurs in North Augusta and other border counties in South Carolina. So Walter, thank you. All right, Brian.
Hi, I'm Brian Brady. I am director of the Greenhouse Business Incubator at the USC Upstate Johnson College of Business and Economics. I'm also an instructor in entrepreneurship and marketing, and I am in charge of 4 credit internships at the School of Business.
Great. Thank you, Brian. Mark, Madden.
Is that me, Erin?
Yes. Yes, that's you.
Okay. You're coming off really delayed. Yeah, my name is Mark Madden. I'm a 3-time entrepreneur, semi-retired, just volunteering here with 10 at the Top, looking for my next entrepreneurial venture.
Good. Mark, thank you. Patty Bach, we are just introducing ourselves. If you'll take yourself off mute, please. She must not have heard us. I'm going to move on to Dean Hebel. I'm sure everyone knows Dean, but Dean, if you would just introduce yourself quickly.
Sure. Thank you, Erin, and welcome to everybody. Glad to have you here and glad you've been part of the calls. And we look forward to continuing to support you all and the work that you do moving forward, as I think it's going to be even more important in the coming months than it has been in the past.
Thank you, Dean. Michael Mino?
Sure, Michael Mino, I guess semi-retired serial entrepreneur in the ecosystem building post
We need to open.
post something, I don't know.
Oh, I don't know. It's both. She says, she's like, we need.
Okay,
businesses
thank
to
you,
open,
Michael.
But we need.
Patty? Okay. David, Darty, can you hear me?
Yes, I can. Can you hear me okay?
Yes, we can. If you will just introduce yourself, please.
Very good. I'm David Doherty. I'm the Vice President of Investor Relations for the Greenwood Chamber of Commerce. And we have been spending a lot of time with our members, as one might imagine.
Good. David, thank you. And David is probably someone that most of y'all don't know yet. So good. Well, thank you, David. Paul, can you hear me? Yeah, okay. Paul sent me a message saying that he's having some technical issues. And we have one other person who's listed as Justine Allen as well. We have no video, so I'm not sure who you are.
I'll
If you could please
unmute this
introduce
other
yourself.
me and we'll see.
Hello?
Hi, this is Tony Brown. It must be
No?
me.
Okay. Oh, Tony, yes. So Tony, introduce yourself, please.
Yeah, I'm the my name is Tony Brown. I'm the executive director of Envision Williamston. We're a Main Street program that's charged with bringing business development and growing the town.
Good.
I
Tony,
started out
thank you.
in my
And
car
most of
area,
y'all
so
don't
now I'm actually moved.
Okay. All right. Well, Tony, thank you. Most of y'all don't know Tony either, but when we can get together, you will get a chance to meet him as well when we get together physically. Okay, so we are having some technical difficulties today. I've had others in calls today as well that were very slow. So we will just take deep breaths and be very patient as we make our way through this. So I'm going to start with a question for you. And again, just take off your mute and I will more than likely see that and be able to say, oh, and call on you. But my first question is about you and what resources you may need. Y'all are out there on the front lines working with the business owners, as some Kaufman folks have called us, the healthcare workers of the economy. Tell me what, if you could, wave a wand and had exactly the resource you need, what would it be? Okay. So because nobody.
I'll go ahead and say,
Earl, do you have something?
yeah, the one thing I wish the small business owners would have had would be better financials. What we're finding is many of the small businesses had not kept good financials. They did not have the ability to pull together the numbers required to receive some of the assistance, which added to the frustration of the programs themselves, which were already frustrating. So if I could wave a magic wand, I would have everybody that I've told for the last 15 years to get your books in order to have actually done that. And that would have made life a lot easier.
Okay, Earl, thank you. Yes, Brittney?
I just want to piggyback on what Earl said. You know, it's difficult. I've had to hire a CPA within the last, I'd say, year and a half or so just to assist me. As more of the creative brain, sometimes you're so busy trying to put together curriculums and doing all these things for your program that you forget about the little intricacies of the financials that you have to have on hand. So maybe in the future, we could hold some type of virtual workshop to make sure that we have almost like a checklist of what a small business of a certain size might need for times such as this. I think that would be a really good idea to be able to have in our arsenal for the next time this was to take place, whether it's a pandemic or something else of this similar magnitude, to be able to be prepared. And we don't want to not have the capability, or have the capability and not share that information. So I think, Earl, that's a great start. I just want to be able to, as an avid learner myself, I would love to be able to know that there are more resources that I might not be tapping into.
Good, Brittney, thank you.
Erin, if I
Anyone
could
else
ask
want
you,
to say something?
Erin, if I could ask a question kind of around both of those comments. I know for us as a nonprofit and applying for the PPP, especially, it was actually very fortunate. We had to apply for a line of credit last year, and so it forced then that we had a stronger banking relationship with a local bank, and we also have a strong accounting firm that we work with that does our regular monthly payroll and things of that nature. And they actually told me what they were going to need to provide for us. They already knew. And so my question is, for small businesses, is it something where they should almost, whether they apply or not, at least go through the practice of creating a banking relationship and be prepared to have something like a line of credit? Because then when you have situations like this, or whenever there's a need for quick funds, it seemed like we were much further ahead than if I had to start from scratch.
Yeah, I would agree with that. And plus, I think being a nonprofit organization, there's a certain amount of financial accountability associated with maintaining that tax status. So you have built in, whether you wanted it, like it, whatever, you have already built in a financial accountability that many small businesses do not have to abide by. So that, I'm sure, also helped your situation over most of the small businesses that we normally deal with.
That's interesting. Walter, I was talking to your director. Hey, I was talking to your director last week, and she was saying that a lot of your businesses do business through Venmo and, don't have banking relationships. And so,
Yeah. So
I'm curious.
I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, go ahead.
What was your question?
Well, I'm curious, just overall, are we in a situation where even if we have these other financial platforms, we still have to have a banker?
Absolutely. What I find, especially with things like Venmo and Apple Pay and all of those things, and some platforms like Square Cash and Squarespace, they do a good job at this. But when it comes to having to be accountable for just those sales at the end of the year, and the taxes that are going to be put on them that you have to pay out, it can really mess some people up. And I mean, we've just been finding that people just keep having to delay after they've done their taxes, whether they've done it individually or under their LLC, just because of that.
Okay. Thank you, Walter. All right, well, good. Well, Earl, that was a very good point. Does anyone have anything else about the financial statement kind of planning? No? Okay.
Erin, this is Mark Madden.
All right, so, yes, Mark.
Yeah, I'm going to tell you from experience, you need to have a personal banker, someone that you can reach out to at all times. You need to have a personal banker. You need to have a personal relationship with your CPA, and you need to have a personal relationship with your attorney.
We actually, when I teach my startup class or any of my financial classes, I tell my small business owners that they need to have two banks at all times. one larger, one smaller, one larger that can handle maybe some of the larger off the wall types of transactions. This is a global economy. You need somebody who can handle international business. And then a smaller bank that knows your name rather than your account number, someone you can go in, talk to one-on-one. Most of the times they're the ones that are going to help you through many of these tougher times. If you have those two things, then the other tools like the Venmos and PayPal accounts and all these other fintech type things, they'll dovetail into that. Those are more likely are tools. The banks are your mainstay.
Okay, Earl, thank you. And Mark, thank you.
Erin, I was just going to ask Earl a follow-up question on that, because that's an interesting perspective I hadn't heard before about having two banks. How does that actually work? And where are your depository accounts? Are they at the big bank or the little bank? Generally, big banks are better at transactional stuff and so forth. I don't know if you want to elaborate, or actually I can follow up with you separately because you introduced an interesting concept.
Yeah, I normally it just depends on the business. If a business is heavy on, say, international trade, then I would have them have the bulk of what they do at the larger bank that handles that. But if they're smaller in nature, don't do a whole lot of oddball stuff, then I would probably have them lead towards a small bank. I'm a big fan of community banks and credit unions. So I focus on those two as much as I can.
Earl actually took,
Thanks, Michael.
I apologize, Erin.
Mhm.
Earl actually took the statement that I was going to say, because I bank that way. From when I lived in New York, I had a federal credit union and I have a sister bank down here, which is Truliant. But then I also bank through my nonprofit with BB&T, or which is now known as Truist, because of the merge with SunTrust. So that is a really good tip, Earl. And I've found that you will have the bankers that know your name that are able to help you with the smaller things. And I've also found, unfortunately, that the same bank that I have sometimes my business account with might not be willing or able to offer the same services specifically for my nonprofit, or something doesn't match up to where I can put all of my accounts in one bank. It is better to kind of spread the love and spread it out. So thank you for that. That lets me know I'm trying to do something right over here.
Good. Okay. Thanks to all of you. All right. So if we could wave our magic wand, we know that we would like to have more financial. David, down in Greenwood, if you could wave a magic wand, what would you want that would help you help your businesses?
Without qualification, everything that has been said concerning small business owners having their act together on financials is just paramount, and it raised its ugly head during this pandemic. Having spent 47 years in the banking industry, I know the value of relationship banking, and I can tell you that while the big banks are very definitely transactional in nature, and they are probably the go-to point for your much larger transactions as well as international trade, the community banks offer so much more, and typically, from my experience, they are connected at correspondent levels to be able to take care of higher end transactions as well as facilitate international trade. So financials are the mainstay of every business. It certainly touches when you have situations like this, and hopefully we'll never have another pandemic to deal with, but we will have on an ongoing basis disasters that will take place that will interrupt business. And the one component I haven't heard mentioned is to have a personal relationship with a trusted insurance advisor, because you don't need your insurance until you have a pandemic or until you have a natural disaster that closes you down for whether it's a week for you to get back up and running. And depending upon your business, every business is different, but if you're dealing in a perishable commodity, then it's even more important to have this in your tool bag, if you will.
It's a very good, important point, David. Thank you. Especially, well, with us being in the hurricane and tornado zones as well. So if we have, so SBDC, everybody does a good bit of training and education. So why do we think that business owners aren't as far along as they should be in keeping track of their financials?
I can offer an observation there in regards to that. First of all, I will say that small business owners today are further down the road than they were 10 years ago as it relates to keeping up with the financial side. The other piece of that is that they spend so much time working in their business, okay, as opposed to working on their business. And when you're dealing with issues of needing to keep the cash flow up and you've got a small staff, then you have to devote an inordinate amount of time to make sure that you keep the sales going. Rarely do small business owners have time to work on their business.
Yeah, I would say it's a combination of fear and time. Most small businesses are afraid of the numbers because they don't understand the accounting aspects of it. And add to the fact that they just don't have the time. Most of the time when it comes to doing the accounting, it's because there's just nothing else they can do. It's 3 a.m. They've done everything else they can possibly do. And now I guess I finally have to do the numbers. So they don't put as high a priority because of the fear factor.
I can add to that, just as a former freelancer and small business owner, it's also simply just a part of our culture. I think that when we're using, our online banking or all those apps, you think that it's already logged in there, so you'll be able to go back and get any of the information that you need, and then maybe do it yourself, maybe not. And it's just like a bad practice that we, at least folks my age, I don't feel like we properly keep up with it. So it's definitely a culture thing as well.
So what do we do about that as people who teach, train, educate, and support entrepreneurs?
It's up to us to.
Go ahead, Walter.
Well, simply I'll just say I think for somewhere like the Clubhouse, we have things like our code boot camp. We have other programming that we do, Startup Life for entrepreneurs. We work with Georgia Tech and so on. And there needs to be a part of all those curriculums that maybe focus on this for people that are going to take those practices that they're learning and take it independently and make their own business out of it. And it just needs to be something that goes with them, the education piece.
Okay, thank you. Brittney?
I was just going to say, I'm not fully sure if we have this up already. I could just be out of the loop, but I was just thinking about a resource page for financials, for people to be able to access on their own. Knowledge is power, we all know. So if we provide people access to it and drive some traffic that way, maybe we'll be able to have, designers or people that are involved, not just with 10 at the top, but of course to be able to, like I said before, share the love and spread the love. Take some of these entrepreneurs that we speak of here in this area that people may or may not know about and post that resources page with the full links so that people can either go to the website or almost like a database of some kind with entrepreneurs that's broken down into those fields. So of course the financials, the creative folks, the graphic designers, the people who are, interior designers, however we would structure it. but just to be able to have everything in one place would be ideal. It would just, we would say, okay, we'll just check out the 10 at the top database and we'll be able to have all those things in place. Or of course, the Small Business Development Center. Wink, wink, Earl. I need to go to your site. I am not doing my job. I need to go to your site so that I can see what resources you all have posted as well.
Yeah, I was just going to say we do have quite a wide variety of tools available on both the Greenville website and the statewide website. So maybe sometime we'll do a field trip to the websites.
Yay!
Yeah, and Erin, if I might add, from a academic point of view, and I don't know if Earl would agree with this, but I've seen two issues. One, there seems to be an aversion to math. A lot of people will tell me, I just don't get math. And so they see accounting as math, and even though it doesn't get much more complicated than adding and subtracting, it's not like calculus or anything like that, right? But still, they seem to be intimidated by it. And second, the only way I can put it, I don't think they still see the importance of it. So in other words, they see it as so complicated. They see it as like, I can't grasp it. They've heard these rumors about debits and credits and so forth. And so I think there's a real aversion. So turning this thing around, I don't know if others would agree with those observations. How can we make it clear how important it is? I stress that in any conversation I have, that gosh, if you don't, it's kind of like the speedometer on your car. If you don't know how fast you're going, then how do you get into a car? But many people will get into the business owner seat and be completely out of knowing where their business is going. I could reference a family member who I had worked with, or who I had talked to for years. And she would tell me, oh, I know how things are going. I usually have more money left over at the end of the year, so everything is fine. I says, well, you have no idea really what's going on if that's your only measure.
Yeah, I think it almost has to be experiential. The sad thing to say is, what do we need to really drive this home? A pandemic, something like a hurricane, or something that forces their hand where they have to sit down and look at the numbers. And the moment that the light bulb goes off when they say, oh, that's how I make profit, or oh, that's how I get to go on vacation next year instead of working 52 weeks straight. Until they see it like that, it's, again, going back to fear and time.
So it seems to me that some of this, that a good bit of it's behavioral too. I just have to get in the habit. So, I mean, is it sending texts out, an automated text? It's Friday, 10 a.m., do your numbers. It's the 28th of the month, make sure your numbers are in place. I mean, I know that's very simplistic, but, that starts to get to the behavior thing. Any thoughts?
Well, when you're in school and you learn this stuff, nobody just can't wait to get to accounting class. That's just not something that happens. But you say, okay, Friday's the quiz. Well, everybody's deep into the books then, right? So we're actually getting ready to introduce a program with the SBDC, and maybe I'm speaking out of hand yet because I don't know what the timing is due to the COVID. But we're going to start a program where we have semi-annual and annual reviews as part of the client relationship. So in order for you to come in, you have to come in and sign up for a semi-annual and or a annual review of your numbers. So that's going to include not only going over what has happened, but also doing projections on what's going to happen over the next 12 months. So I think when you put it in to that kind of a package where you want an appointment, you better bring the numbers. So you got to force their hand.
Mm-hmm. But here's the problem I've seen with that, Earl, and I don't know if you've seen this, but most business people who don't have a formal accounting background do what I'd call advanced checkbook accounting. And so they'll use a tool like QuickBooks, but they'll use it at a very fundamental level. So concepts like accrual accounting and so forth are completely foreign to them. Depreciation, a lot of typical accounting kind of concepts, just they might have heard them, they're fearful of them, but they really don't know how to understand them. And I found even saying, gosh, you really as a business owner need to learn this, take a course or whatever, there's an aversion to that. And the only way I've seen it work, and I think SBDC probably is you have to almost hold their hand and over time point out to them why they got into trouble because they did cash accounting and not accrual accounting and so forth, and how that's not a very accurate reflection of what happened. Not taking inventory. I mean, I could go on and on of all of the problems that I see the business owners who don't take accounting seriously, and oftentimes have a bookkeeper, not even an accountant, but a bookkeeper who will do it for them. And so they'll, about the best they can do is they look at the bottom line and say, is it a minus or a plus? Okay, great, it's a plus, I'm doing great. But with no real appreciation for what is going on behind the scenes. At least that's my experience.
Yeah, even if I could even get half of my clients to get to that checkbook level of accounting that you're talking of, I'd be happy. You know, seriously, when I teach marketing, I tell my clients, I say, if you want to be ahead of 60% of your competition, just do the numbers. Just do your numbers. If you know what your margins are and what your profitability is, you've already beat out over half of your competition. And it's rough getting them to that point.
Yeah, I agree 100%.
I agree with both of you. It's 2021 and we should be a little past those fundamental practices. But at the end of the day right now, I think something like the text, something that's persistent, that is telling you to take accountability like what the SBDC is going to do, I think that's a start at least.
Thank you all. Okay, we know that QuickBooks is kind of a standard. Are there other easy, just keep track of your expenses and your revenues and depreciation tools out there? Earl, I see you nodding.
Yeah, there's other online tools. Nolo has a whole suite of tools, nolo.com. Xero, Xero, is another QuickBooks type of a tool. Then you've got a whole handful of those that will create invoices and keep track of customer information. But the problem with some of those, most of your freemium type models, they'll give you the basics. You can put out an invoice and maybe track your accounts receivable, but you can't produce a balance sheet and a profit and loss. And that's really kind of the crux of the whole thing. You get to put the data in, but you don't get the good stuff out the other side of it. Mm-hmm. So if you're going to sign up for something else, I would just say, be careful that you're getting a whole picture, not just one element of accounting.
And I'll go one step further. It's hard to beat. I mean, you can buy, I think, QuickBooks Pro or whatever. It's only a couple $100 in the scheme of any business. That's a nothing, right? And then on top of that, you will probably be hard pressed to find an accounting firm that's going to do your taxes who will not take the accountant's output from QuickBooks. Whereas all these other products, you're likely to run into situations where your tax accountant's going to say, well, I'm not familiar with that, or I don't have an interface to that, or what have you. So not that I'm a proponent of QuickBooks per se. In my past business, we had to interface with QuickBooks, and behind the scenes, it's a piece of crap, but it is so ubiquitous, and there's so much training and knowledge available, it's hard to beat. It's kind of like, use something besides Microsoft Word for your Word documents. I'd say QuickBooks is kind of in that position.
And sometimes you can find databases like for donor management when it comes to the nonprofit sector. I mean, sometimes you can find donor databases that assist with some of the financials as well. Not all of them, but that kind of goes back to what I said about the checklist for small businesses. Like some of them don't really know exactly what type of forms or what type of like you said, the balance and balance profit and loss sheets and all these different things. They don't know what they have to compile. They don't know what type of financials they need to create something like that. So I think that would be really helpful to have a checklist that would put all that into perspective for them.
Okay, good. Thanks, everyone. Okay, so since at 10 at the top, we work with you, the support providers, and y'all work with the entrepreneurs. We, of course, would not be sending a reminder out to entrepreneurs. We would send it to you, or a tool to you that you could then send out. So one of the tools that we're working on is I'm not going to call it a calendar, but a list of opportunities to learn, and connect. If we put on that calendar, and we're also connecting other people's calendars and whatever, but if we were to put on that calendar something that said, it's, weekly do your numbers meeting, or monthly do your numbers, as a reminder to set it aside on people's calendars. I mean, would that, if that was on a calendar that y'all could then forward out to people so that they could put that event on their calendar as a meeting, invitation, is that a very simple type tool that could be useful?
I don't think it would move the needle. I think the problem is, like I alluded to before, most people rely on a bookkeeper to do the work for them. They're on whatever schedule they're on to do that. I mean, to impress upon your typical business owner the importance of closing the books every month is a challenge. I mean, that's taking it beyond Earl's, if they could do checkbook accounting. But I mean, these are relatively simple concepts that your typical business person really doesn't even know what closing the books means. So to tell them, put on a calendar, do your books today, I'm not sure it would help much.
Well, there's a note over here from Patty, which she sent to me privately. So Patty, I'm sorry, I'm going to say it publicly. She says, yes, it is up to the business owners, but the more we offer, the better. Reminders help, and then over time, it can change behavior.
Yeah.
Think of all those workout apps and things that people get, or the apps to breathe, to calm yourself. What are they doing? They're pushing out reminders to change behavior. And Michael, there are all different types of businesses, and Earl, how many do you have who actually have a bookkeeper?
Those who can afford it typically do have a bookkeeper. The problem is the bookkeeper becomes their accounting. Because they have one, they're done. Is the way they see it.
Yes.
And it floors me. They pay somebody good money to do the bookkeeping and the accounting aspects of the business. And I say, well, when's the last time you looked at a profit and loss statement for your business? Well, when they did my taxes last year.
Right.
And here we're sitting in October. They haven't seen one in over 10 months. And it's just nuts that they put the money and the effort behind it, but don't really get the true value out of the review part of it.
Yeah, and I think they do it mostly because there's this organization called the IRS that requires them to file taxes every year. And so therefore, if it wasn't for that, I'm not even sure they would do the books. But back to your question, I think that Earl's approach is the best one I've heard yet. And that is to force them to have to review financials with someone else who's going to take on the review perspective, but also the education. So what I have found when that occurs and you walk through the numbers with the person, there's a training thing. So maybe this time I might be teaching them about accrual or the importance of that. The next time maybe so forth. So I don't know if that's part of the program you're talking about, Earl, but that's the best idea I've heard yet.
Well, we're also backing it up with some enticement. If you come in during those time frames, we are offering a snapshot of your industry. So we'll provide you with your industry trends. We'll provide you with your local demographics surrounding your geographic area of influence. All that kind of stuff comes with this review.
Wow.
So not only are you going over your numbers, you're getting a reset on your market.
Brittney, were you going to say something?
I was just going to say that goes back to the recommendations that I was mentioning to Earl before about that checklist. You know, if people have more of an idea of what needs to be done, if they need to be doing this quarterly instead of annually when they file their taxes, that could be a recommendation that we would make, along with what we would send out and say, you know, okay, so this is your quarterly, this is your time where you should begin looking over your information, compile these things, talk to someone, and then provide the resources to them in one email, so that they don't have to go, so that they don't have to say, okay, well, let me compile this, but then I have to go here to reach the person that I need to talk to. It's almost like we should give them a list of opportunities with choices and the recommendations. Like for what Michael said, sometimes you have to make it easier for people if they're challenged in some way. Or like, I know I'm not a math person, but I've had to handle deductions and a lot of things since 2011 when I first started my business. So I get it. It's daunting. I understand. But that's why the preparation and, like you said before, Erin, the behavior has to really change in order for people to know what to do. But then they also have to have an outline of exactly what needs to be done to know what they need to do, instead of us not spelling it out for them. It leaves it to their imagination to assume what they have to do if they have to compile 4 or 5 different things instead of everything being in a nice little package for them and sent out.
Okay. All right. All right. Well, this gives us lots to think about relative to the financial piece. And I'm already thinking about the storytelling group and, you know, accountants and different things. So we'll move on because it's already 1:48, and I apologize. My phone is ringing because I have a new washer and dryer coming. And I know that, and I forgot to give my phone to my husband, because you know they're going to call when you're on the thing, when you're on your meeting. So I'm going to have to go deal with that in just 1 second. But I wanted to ask about going forward with the entrepreneurs. Interestingly, people keep asking, the question, who do you talk to is in dire straits from a business perspective? How many of you, just raise your hand, are working with or know a business that is in absolute dire straits because of COVID-19? Okay, so we've got 2 people. All right, good. What can you, oh, and I don't know, David, I can't see you if you raised your hand.
Walter put his up too.
Pardon me?
Oh, maybe he's just clapping.
Oh, okay, okay. Let's see, Patty's saying that they have people who didn't get PPE because Patty said that businesses didn't get any PPE because they didn't do their books.
Ah.
That's interesting. Okay, so the question about, so for those that are on the edge and those who are veering towards the edge, what kind of immediate support do y'all feel like they need?
Well, most of the organizations that I know needed help that couldn't get it, or they were waiting on the government to kind of release the stipulations of what was happening, were the salons and the barbershops. You know, as a person that is in dire straits right now for the need of a haircut, I understand that they want to work, but that it could be a detriment to all of us if they go back to work. But some of them are not skilled enough to know, like I said before, about that checklist, what to put together, especially some of the smaller barbershops and those who only own 1, as opposed to my barber who owns 3, who might have to close one of his locations due to all of this. So a lot of them were impacted because they had employees that maybe didn't have insurance, maybe didn't have any type of preparation for this. So that was the big issue for some of the business owners that I know.
Okay. Earl?
I would say that The businesses that did not have the ability or did not take the initiative to get in a different frame of mind, pivot what they do day in, day out, change their marketing approach. Those are the ones that have had the most difficult time working their way through this. Those of them who have said, okay, fine, that message I had prior to COVID worked then, but it's not working now. I need to change. I need to rethink my business. I need to repackage my product or my service. I need to find a different way to do what I do, not to make a profit, but to just keep cash flowing. Those who could not get in that mindset are the ones that are in dire straits right this moment.
So we will always have those types of business owners, more of them in good times than in bad, because they will get weeded out. How do we support those and make sure they don't get weeded out?
Strategic planning.
Okay, so
education.
Okay.
Education for sure.
So all that we have talked about today has really pointed at more education for the entrepreneurs, specifically around finances, specifically around just keeping the books and knowing where you are, what your financial position is. Okay. And then the second, how do you be more innovative and creative and pivot, or how do you adjust? Sorry, Patty's put another note up. So again, we do a lot of workshops in our 10 counties. I mean, well, I say we do a lot of workshops in specific areas of our 10 counties. But yet we're still talking about we need more workshops. Thoughts?
I've been methodically switching the SBDC workshops from workshop to hands-on, because if you come to my Financial 101 class, it's lecture, I tell you about the 4 documents you need to maintain and why they're important and how to generally read them. And you walk out the door and you've got some knowledge, but you didn't apply it. And because of the reasons we've already talked about, you probably won't. But if I have you come in and say, okay, bring all everything you have in your office that has to do with the numbers. And when you walk out of class, it will be organized in a fashion that will be meaningful to your business. That's different. That's not a workshop. That's not a class. That's a get down in the weeds and do something on your business. I think we need more of that.
So would that be like coaching or mentoring?
Well, you know, we got the MBA program through the chamber. I just did the Entrepreneurial Pathways program in support of the chamber's thing. There's those kinds of programs that do get you more hands-on. I think if we maybe banded together and pooled the resources that we have available and say, okay, you know, what works for you, and we pick the small pieces out of everybody's programs that works really well and provides that more hands-on approach, that might be the better way to do this.
Okay. Thank you, Earl. Anybody, anything else about that?
One of the things that I would offer up is that the small business owner at some point in time has to take accountability. And they have to assume that they are responsible for looking after some of this stuff. We can coach and preach and do all this all day long. But at the end of the day, particularly when you have businesses that have been in existence for quite some time that are transitioning from one generation to the next, we don't need to do away with the seminars and the opportunities. But at some point in time, the business owner has to become accountable. And I think this is one of the things that we're going to see as a result of the pandemic, in terms of who's going to survive and who isn't going to survive. We need to continue to economically do the right thing and economically progress our communities in our upstate, because rising tide will raise all the boats. But at the end of the day, we can't do it all for them. They've got to accept some responsibility too.
David, those are all good points. And that goes back to, I think Earl might have said earlier, the difference between working in the business, or maybe David, you said it as well, working in the business versus on the business. You know, so then taking up the coaching, training, workshop to another level, is it something around the lines of teaching business owners to own their business? I don't know.
That's a good point. That's a good
Yeah,
point.
I agree with that.
Yeah. So, okay.
And Patty's note over there actually makes a good point. If we as a community of entrepreneurial support organizations took it upon ourselves to require that level of understanding, that can require that level of knowledge in a business before services are delivered or grants or funding or anything else for that matter is provided, if you required that level of understanding before you provided it, it would force the hand.
That's a good point too. All right, we are at 2 minutes to go. And I don't want to take up any more of your time, but we have lots of very interesting things to think about for our June 25th meeting. We are keeping our fingers crossed that we can all get together in the same room on June 25th. It will probably be some more of this discussion. And I think that that's very interesting what you brought up, Earl, about what Patty said, because we have slid back to, oh, anybody can become an entrepreneur. You know, it used to be that you couldn't come in the door if you didn't have this and that and the other. And now we are, oh, anybody. And, you know, I don't know if now we're looking at the pendulum swinging back, or, you know, because when we say, because when we say you need to learn these things, then that puts up barriers. And we certainly don't want that. But are we putting into place the systems or the programming or whatever to train the people so that they are prepared to be business owners and to actually own their business? I will leave you with that thought question. All right, does anybody have anything final to say? No. Well, Tony, it's nice. Pardon me?
Sorry.
Go ahead.
Patty had a nice message in the chat talking about when those who receive a Habitat home, they have to be educated and put in a lot of work before becoming a recipient, almost to like prove that they're ready. So maybe that's a thought, maybe like a certification course or something where people have to attend, whether online or in person, to be able to finish that course, and they take a little test and maybe they're ready.
Okay.
That's something very similar to what we're trying to do in Williamston, actually. We have like a $10,000 Main Street Challenge. And instead of businesses failing, I've worked with AU to come up with a kind of an entrepreneurial map system where people take certain courses and pass those courses. Even if they have to invest a little bit of money into it, it shows that they're capable and they have a better chance of succeeding rather than failing within the first 3 years. And so it is one of those things that we're trying to do with the local university and our local business association, to bring those entities together and say, hey, how can we train entrepreneurs so they can be more successful, and also for them to see the benefit of investing that time into it as well.
So good, Tony. All right, so now we know somebody who's doing it. So we might have to ask you to talk about it a little bit more. So, all right, I see some folks are already starting to drop off. This is the last of our weekly webinars. So thanks to all of you who joined us. And thanks, Walter, for coming from Augusta, Georgia. And y'all just take care. If you need anything, just email me and we'll see what we can do. All right. Have a great day.
All right.
Thank you.
Appreciate you.
Tony, email me if you get a chance.
Right.
I just put that in the
Okay.
chat box.
All right.
You just put what?
I did. I copied the.
Okay. Thanks.
Yes. All right. No problem. Thanks a lot.
All right.
Take care. Bye-bye.
Bye.
All right. Yep. Y'all.
All
Right. Oh, good.
I'll leave the chat. I'll leave it open for a minute. I think there's some communication going on.
Okay. Patty, thanks for all your suggestions. Tony, I can't wait to come visit again soon. All right.
Well, hopefully, yeah, hopefully we'll be good to open again soon and be able to do that kind of stuff. It's crazy right now.
Yes. I know. All right, it is. Well,
We'll get them out and
for me? Yes. All right, well, good. Michael, anything? Sorry, I'm having a hard time hearing you. So, all right, well, I'm going to sign off and go see about that washer and dryer.
Later.
All right, y'all. Yep, all right, take care. All right, thank you, Paul.